After a week to catch our breath, round 3 of the 2026 season brings us to Japan. Flowing, fast and unforgiving, the Suzuka circuit remains a firm favourite of the drivers. And it's not just the challenge on track, the fans, the passion and the atmosphere here are like nowhere else. But as ever in Formula One, it's the racing at the heart of it all. Mercedes were dominant in Australia and China. Now the question is, can anyone stop them? It is time for the Japanese Grand Prix. Hello and welcome to the pit lane here at the Suzuka circuit. What a special place this is. Alongside me, F1 correspondent Lawrence Barretto and European Le Mans Series champion Alex Brundle. Guys, I'm so happy to be back here. I love coming to Japan. We have fans alongside us here as well. It's Thursday and they're already lining the entrance to the track. Lawrence, this place is just special, isn't it?
I love Japan. The entire paddock loves Japan. They love coming back to Suzuka. The fans, they're here in the morning when we get here. They're going to be sat in that grandstand long after the sun has set, keeping an eye on what's going on in the team's garages. They are so passionate about it, and they've got some incredible costumes to match as well.
They do indeed. I love doing the costume spotting across this place. It is pretty cool. Alex, it is a circuit that the drivers absolutely love driving. It's going to be a good weekend out on track, isn't it?
It is an old school circuit by nature and also by pure age. This will be the 40th Japanese Grand Prix. 36 of them have been held here in Suzuka. It's a brilliant challenge for the drivers, something they don't get to see through the feeder series either. So they embark on Formula One at this super high-speed challenge. And yeah, always brilliant to be back. Where Formula One used to crown its champions in the late 80s and early 90s, takes an earlier stage of the season now, but a brilliant layout.
It is indeed. Right, we have a lot to get into ahead of the weekend. But first, let's remind ourselves of how everything went down last time out in China.
We have now arrived at the Chinese Grand Prix. The world champion team mired in the pit lane. So one of the threats for Mercedes has gone. Kimi Antonelli is the youngest Grand Prix pole sitter in Formula One history. Off the line we go. The Mercedes are fighting each other. Do they open the door for Lewis Hamilton, who sweeps round and takes the lead?
Verstappen, he's way down the order.
It's happened again. Kimi Antonelli back to the lead. Oh, it's close between the Ferraris. Second position for Charles Leclerc.
That is actually quite the fun.
He won't give up. Amazing commitment.
Brilliant wheel-to-wheel action.
George Russell's moving ahead. It's a Mercedes 1-2. Contact between Ocon and Colapinto.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Kimi Antonelli building a massive gap out front.
Verstappen slowing.
Okay, Max, let's retire the car, please.
Tough start to the season for Red Bull.
I have no power. Give me something.
Charles Leclerc with the error. Lewis Hamilton back up to third. Oh, off the road, the race leader. It's not done yet.
He's got to make sure he keeps that concentration. One more lap. Just bring it home.
Here comes the history boy.
Yes! We did it, man.
Antonelli wins the Chinese Grand Prix.
Come on, my son. This is one you're going to remember forever, man.
You made me achieve one of my dreams. Thank you so much.
Lewis Hamilton finally has a Ferrari podium. And for Kimi Antonelli, the teenage dream comes true.
What a day for Kimi Antonelli. Maiden Grand Prix win and the first Italian to win an F1 race in 20 years. Lawrence, we saw the emotion after the race. Do you think Kimi is off of cloud 9 yet?
No, not yet, and I think he's going to be up there for a fair long while because it was an incredible step forward from Kimi. I think, you know, when Toto Wolff recruited him, that's what they expected of him. And I think when you then deliver that kind of performance, there's a relief, an internal relief that kind of gives you that extra spring in your step, kind of gives you that confidence, your shoulders go back. I think the feeling inside the team, or you're standing with inside the team, just rises because I think they know what kind of job you can do and whether or not you can go and take the fight to George Russell, your teammate.
It was so great to see. We also saw tennis star Yannick Sinner also praising him. It was clearly a big day for Italy because Yannick had just won his match as well. But Alex, we just mentioned George Russell. Are we going to see more of a battle now between these two drivers? I mean, Kimi has now ticked off one of the big things, winning your first race. Surely that means something.
It was a big day for Kimi, firstly, to win the first Grand Prix, but also in the championship. You know, he's sitting in a clearly dominant Mercedes. He needs to show that he's a realistic prospect for this World Championship, and I think he did that. You know, the two Mercedes started across the front row of the grid. Kimi kept his head cool, nailed the start, which George Russell, having a bit of a difficult weekend after that, you know, by Mercedes standards this year, after that technical issue in qualifying, had a more difficult start, drove it from lights to flag, and he's demonstrated to the team that he can hold his nerve and convert a good grid position into a race victory, which is really important for his season moving forward.
Such a special day for him and for the team. And a little bit behind Kimi, we saw some fantastic battling between the Ferrari drivers, Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton, lap after lap going for it. I mean, how exciting is it to be able to see this multi-lap battling, Lawrence?
Well, I think what I particularly enjoyed was that Charles and Lewis liked the battles themselves. I think they had a lot of respect for each other. We can see that they gave each other plenty of space. There's a lot of confidence for them to go wheel to wheel successfully on multiple corners. I think Fred probably would have had a heart attack every time that one went past the other on the pit wall. But I think that's what we want to see, isn't it? We want to see teammates going up against each other like that.
And once they finished reminding each other how wide the cars were over the radio, I think they really enjoyed it, those two. But indicative again of the kind of battling that we've seen, particularly at the beginning of Grand Prix this year.
It's great to see, and I'm looking forward to hopefully more of it this weekend. Now, some of the big news coming into this weekend was that Jonathan Wheatley has left the Audi F1 team with immediate effect. Lawrence, give us a little bit more detail around this.
Yeah, it was a shock decision, really. Jonathan came into the team just under a year ago. Came in as team principal, kind of the day-to-day running was under his guise, and then we had Mattia Binotto, head of the F1 project, and they had this dual partnership, this dual management system. They had offices on either side of an open door. They kind of discussed everything from day to day, and then it's now moved to a point where Mattia Binotto takes on those duties because Jonathan's had to step aside for personal reasons, and it just means in the interim he'll have to look after the day-to-day running of the team while they work out the wider plan for that structure going forward, because at the moment there's a loss they're lacking there. They need that kind of that day-to-day running of the team.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens there, and of course we will keep you up to date with any news from that. As we have all said, this is one of the most iconic circuits on the F1 calendar, so let's learn a little bit more about it with your track guide with Liam Lawson.
We want to give fans a bit more of a technical look at some of the circuits on the 26th calendar, and for you we've chosen Japan.
Well, it's an easy one because Japan's quite cool. Fans in Suzuka are very, very passionate. To see Formula One in Japan, it's a very cool thing to see and be a part of. The main characteristics of Suzuka are going to be the high speed. Sector 1 in Suzuka, very high speed. The S is where you're transferring from left to right constantly. It's quite an incredible feeling on your body as well. Probably the best part of the circuit in Formula 1 car. It's pretty exciting. Into Sector 2, which is again high speed, but drops into some low speed stuff as well. You're down in second gear, which is obviously very slow in a Formula 1 car. It's very low grip, it's quite hard, the hairpin section of the track. Suzuka is a track that you can extract a little bit more performance out of just taking a bit more risk. Something that's quite cool and unique about that track versus a lot of other places. And then coming to the last sector, along straight into 130R, which is a famous corner, which is very, very fast. Used to be more of a corner, but now the cars are so fast that and high grip that it's not really a corner anymore. You're just flat out. And then the bus stop chicane at the end of the lap, which is also quite iconic for some big overtakes over the year. There's not much room for error on Suzuka.
Can only imagine how cool it must be to drive around this place. Now, of course, this weekend, it'll be a slightly different challenge because we've got the new cars and the new regulations. And this weekend, we've also had the FIA reducing the recharge limit per lap for qualifying to 8 megajoules, formerly 9. Alex, just talk to us a little bit about that and the impact that it's going to have.
So we're in the Melbourne zone, really, of how difficult it is to recover energy around this racetrack. I think it's the 4th least in terms of energy available out on the circuit. The reduction in the energy available in qualifying is to prevent behaviours that might be dangerous or that the organisers don't want to try to gather too much energy back. I've been talking to a couple of the teams today, and in practice they're telling me what that means is that they'll be forced to hold more of the energy allocation for the run to Spoon, the run down to 130R, and then the run across the line. So it kind of pushes them later and prevents the super clipping behaviours to try and recover the energy that we have seen at some circuits. They will still derate, they will still run out of energy around the racetrack, but trying to get closer to a full flat-out qualifying attempt. It's going to be a really difficult race weekend for that, it must be said. Not only because there's not a lot of energy out on the racetrack, but also because there aren't a lot of braking zones here. So it's a different kind of energy recovery. The off-throttle, on-throttle management, something we haven't really seen much of throughout the season so far. So it's going to be interesting to see who can get on top of that.
It's going to be interesting to see as the season unfolds how we bed into these new regulations. But of course, it is great to see that we are reacting and that there's this evolution in response to the different tracks that we're going to, Lawrence.
Yeah, I think what the FIA, the F1 teams, the drivers have tried to do is have lots of conversations, and as the rules have kind of been played out within the first Grand Prix in Australia, then with the sprint weekend in China, we're getting actual evidence of like how they're going to play out, and I think they're trying to be pragmatic about it. You know, these regulations aren't black and white, they're not going to stay the same, they're going to evolve through the season, and I think the fact that they all got together and were able to come to this decision so quickly to make a tweak for this weekend in Japan, with the idea that they will make further tweaks as we go along, I think it's encouraging for the rest of the season.
It definitely is. Alex, talking about those energy management difficulties this weekend, talk to us a little bit about how the drivers are going to use tactics when it comes to energy management around this place.
Obviously, you've got 3 straights that back-to-back with each other, so they're where you're going to see the energy games throughout the races. So if you use a lot, for example, down to Spoon to try and make an overtake or defend your position, you're going to then be vulnerable down to 130R. But there's also going to be a lot for the drivers to do in being on and off throttle through the first sector, turn 3 through to turn 6. We've seen George Russell and Mercedes extremely good at harvesting energy in that way. That's all energy they can use later around the lap. Of course, the cars are now more nimble as well, slightly smaller, shorter wheelbase, and have a little bit less downforce. So the challenge of Suzuka, I think, is going to be amplified by the fact that if you head in to those fast corners with the entry speed that you had last year, you're going to come unstuck pretty quickly because there's a lot less grip underneath the drivers.
Thank you very much for that insight there. Now, when you see the cars out on a track, maybe employing some of those tactics, a few of them are going to look a little bit different because they are sporting special edition liveries. You can see there the Racing Bulls car has a spring edition livery, white, red and silver, looking very nice. Haas has their special edition livery, Godzilla, which looks very cool, I have to say. And Mercedes have also collaborated with Y3 with a wolf front wing, and also their overalls as well are looking a little bit different this weekend. Let's now hear from those Mercedes drivers, starting with George Russell.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he had a great weekend in China, and obviously I was a little bit annoyed that it wasn't me on that top set, but with all of the struggles that we had, I kind of saw it as 18 points gained and not 7 points lost, to be honest, because you look at the problems we had on Saturday, the issues that McLaren faced as well. It could have been any one of us, so I was just pleased to get another strong result. It's been a very, very good start to the year. I'm just excited to go back racing here.
Yeah, it's been crazy, but I've been enjoying the moment. It's been good fun, and but at the same time, yeah, just move the focus very quickly onto this weekend, because obviously, you know, China was incredible. You know, winning Shanghai was probably the best day of my life so far. So yeah, but we still got 20 races left. So just wanna keep the momentum going, and hopefully we can achieve something great this weekend as well.
Kimi definitely still has that grin on his face from that China win. You could absolutely see it beaming there. But both drivers must be feeling this sort of confidence. They've been so dominant in the first 2 races.
Absolutely. Look, George has been confident pretty much all the way through pre-season from the moment that he sampled that Mercedes for the first time. And I think it's a big weekend for him because we obviously saw Kimi step up when George had those problems last time out in China. And now we need to see what that reaction is, because he's going to be aware that if Kimi does start to build some momentum, there is going to be a genuine threat and a good battle in team battle at Mercedes. So it's a big weekend, I think, for George. I think he's got the confidence, as we saw just then, to believe that he's got that level up on Kimi. But I think he's in a good spot, and I want to see a good battle between them.
Kimi just needs to get over those 1 or 2 moments he has. He had one, for example, in the sprint race in Shanghai with Isaac Hadjar, tiny little bit of contact. If he can overcome those moments, I think he's got the pace to challenge George over the championship. I think that's going to be Kimi's battle this year. George, obviously, with the fantastic experience, if Kimi can clear that moment where he just loses his head a little bit in the races, he's going to be a fierce contender for the championship.
I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Now, Mercedes may be dominant so far, but their closest challenger is the Ferrari team. Let's hear now from Charles Leclerc earlier on in the press conference.
I think, as everyone is saying, I think this championship is going to be all about development and upgrades that each teams are going to bring. For now, we are in an okayish place, but of course we're not here to only do podiums, and we want to win races, which at the moment seems very difficult because Mercedes is at a very high level. But we are working very hard, and especially the people back at the factory are working extremely hard for bringing upgrades as soon as possible. I know there's quite a bit of things coming up soon. Whether this is going to make the difference or not, I don't know, and I'm pretty sure the others are not on vacation either, so it's going to be tough.
Now, Charles mentioning there that development race, all about development this season. After the last race, Fred Vasseur seemed to suggest actually that Ferrari power unit is more than 2% off of the benchmark, which we believe to be Mercedes, which would mean that they would fall into this additional development and upgrade opportunity. If you haven't heard about it, don't worry, Alex Brundle's going to tell us.
Well, it rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? The ADUO regulations. Series, in theory, cut into 4 parts, so 6 races apiece. Obviously, a slight change that we're not now going to Saudi Arabia and Bahrain in April is an open conversation, actually, as to how that's going to be managed. If during one of those 6 race segments, a power unit is seen to be more than 2% slower or worse in terms of an index of performance than the best, that team gets an opportunity to bring another homologation and a little bit more slack in the cost cap as well. If it's over 4%, they get even more of an additional opportunity to develop the power unit. So Fred Vasseur there, inkling towards the fact that the Ferrari engine even might be that far behind the Mercedes power unit, which would give them an opportunity to improve it under those regulations. If so, exciting for Ferrari because the chassis seems really good.
Well, that's what I was about to say, Alex. If Fred feels that the power unit is not up to scratch, then given the fact that they're able to compete with the Mercedes the way we've seen over the last 2 race weekends, then surely that means that the chassis and the aero performance must be pretty strong.
Looking at the data over the first 2 races, the chassis performance from Ferrari has been better than Mercedes. It's a couple of kilometers per hour in the slow speed. They look like they have just a little bit more apex speed everywhere. It's been the power unit for Merc that's been the difference. So yeah, with another spec, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that the next spec is going to be level with the Merc. I mean, they've still got to do the development work and they've still got to bring an engine which would yield that kind of improvement. But if those regulations come into force, it definitely can't be negative for Ferrari, that's for sure.
Right then, one driver that has been very positive this season so far is Lewis Hamilton. And Lawrence, you sat down with him earlier on today. Let's have a little look at how that went.
I've been trying to get that podium for a long time. It felt like never had to work so hard just to get a podium. So I was very, very grateful, and it felt like the first, even though I've been fortunate to have had quite a few and it felt even more special to be in red, but also to be up there with Bono and Kimi with his first win, and George. So it was very nostalgic, I would say.
Lawrence, looks like Lewis was in a very good mood there. How was it to sit down with him?
He was in the best mood that I can remember for years. Maybe since that win at Silverstone for Mercedes. I think he genuinely feels that he's got a machine that does what he wants it to do now, that he feels connected with again. And he went into a lot of detail that you'll see later on in the weekend in our pre-race show about the impact he's been able to have over the winter and how this is more of his car, you know. And I love it when we get a Lewis like that, I think, because it just shows that the hunger is still there and that he hasn't gone away. It was just that he struggled a little bit with the performance of the car, but he was in such a great mood.
Well, you guys will be able to see the full interview on the pre-race show on Sunday. Now, it was a fantastic weekend last time out for Lewis Hamilton, but it was not a good weekend over in the McLaren camp. Double DNS for the drivers. Let's hear now from our current world champion, Lando Norris, on his thoughts and feelings after that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it hurt us as a team. It certainly didn't make us look good to have two cars not starting a race. I think what hurt more is the fact it was out of our control. But with HPP, we've worked hard to figure things out, to understand how it happened, why it happened, and of course, we'll do everything we can to make sure it doesn't happen again. You can't have the best of everything, and I think as a team, we certainly are not where we want to be and where we desire to be, but I think we all know within the team what we can achieve, and now is just as good of a time as ever to prove exactly what we can do as a team, against Ferrari, against Mercedes, who are performing very well at the minute. But I know all the boys and the girls back in the factory are working very hard, and there's good progress happening. It takes time to improve on some things, and it's not like we're bad. We're still third best team at the minute, but we certainly enjoy being first a lot more than third. So time will tell. We've got some things in the pipeline, and like I said, everyone's working hard, so we're ambitious to get back to the top.
My goodness, I mean, it was a difficult thing to see neither McLaren starting, but we've had this week off now. How will that week off have helped in terms of PU management, and what can we expect to see this week from the McLaren?
Well, it wasn't a ton of time, really, for the team to make many steps forward, but I think what the team have found is that they understand what the two problems were, and they were very different problems between Lando and Oscar. Fixes are in place. The question is whether or not there'll be further issues going forward, and they just don't know because we're in this such early phase of new regulations, and I think we're going to get these niggles continuously. But I think just listening to Lando there, I think there is a growing confidence within that team that they will eventually get on top of it. It's just going to take a little bit of time.
And moving further down the order, which feels a little bit weird to say when you're talking about Red Bull, you're talking about Max Verstappen, but that's another team that are struggling. How are they going to go this weekend here, and how difficult is it going to be when we talk about grip? Because that's one of their struggles, isn't it?
Well, it's Max Verstappen central, this place. He's
It
won
is.
from pole every year since 2022 here. But it's good old-fashioned balance they were struggling with in Shanghai. They're actually 6 kilometers per hour clear of the McLaren down the back straight throughout qualifying and free practice. The power unit looked decent. The car just wasn't underneath Max Verstappen. Didn't look to be that far underneath Isaac Hadjar either with the big spin early on in the Grand Prix. Let's see. They'll be able to work on that. I think they'll be heartened by the fact that the PU was there for them and that they can try and work on that car to get it in a bit of a better window for them. But they're going to have to change something, aren't they? Because it's not great at the moment.
They do have a lot of fan support here, which hopefully will motivate them a little bit. And a lot of that support, of course, coming off the back of Red Bull's former partnership with Honda. Honda are now with Aston Martin, and I think we have to talk about Aston Martin. This is a home race for Honda. If they want a good race anywhere, it's here. But how difficult is that going to be? What work may they have been able to do over the recent days?
Well, I think it's interesting that Aston Martin say their goal here is to finish the race with one car at least, and I think for them to even say that that is their goal shows how much work Aston know they need to put in to get their season back on track. They know it won't be the work of a moment. Honda have talked about the vibration issues that they've had They've put countermeasures in again this weekend after the success of the countermeasures they introduced in China, in the hope that around the steering area, because I think that's what we were seeing in China, Fernando Alonso had to stop the car because the vibrations were so severe. They've put a countermeasure in the hope that that will make it a little bit more comfortable for the driver, in the hope that they then can get to the end of the race. Because I think Honda's belief is the battery and the engine can get to the end of the race. It's just a combination of factors. So fingers crossed for that team that those countermeasures are indeed a step forward.
Well, absolutely, because it's not what anyone up and down this paddock wants to see. We want to see the teams and all the hard work that go into it paying off and seeing those cars out on track. Worth noting that Fernando Alonso has not been at track today due to family reasons. We believe it could be the arrival of his child, which is very exciting, but of course we'll wait to see. But in FP1 tomorrow as well, he won't be in the car. Jack Crawford will be stepping in, Alex.
Yep, Formula 2 second place finisher, Jack Crawford, and it'll be a great opportunity for him to get his hands on that machine and try and keep on developing and moving it forward. It's so difficult for Aston Martin when you are limited on your running, because how many other nasties are there in there that, as they haven't yet completed a Grand Prix distance this year, they've not yet found out about. The problem is really deep in the car. They'll be hoping they can sort it out with the power unit. Otherwise, you've got to start looking at how you mount the engine to try to negate the resonance or the vibrations that are coming through the car. As Lawrence says, they think they've solved the battery bit. It's just what it's doing to the drivers that they can't solve at the moment.
Well, let's see how they fare this weekend, and we'll see how Jack Crawford does as well. He'll be joining us after that session, so make sure you tune in and we'll be getting the debrief from him. Let's now look at our schedule for the weekend, shall we? So tomorrow we will have our practice sessions. Join us from 10 past 11 for practice 1 and 20 to 3 for practice 2. This is all local track time. On Saturday, final practice at 11:10, and then pre-qualifying show from 2:25. Then we go straight into qualifying, and we'll be debriefing everything in the post-quali show. And then Sunday, the big one, pre-race show from 12:50, and then we get into the Formula 1 Aramco Japanese Grand Prix at 2 p.m. And then we have a chat about everything that goes down in the race in our post-race show, and we hope that you will join us for that too. And that is not all this weekend. We'll also be seeing the first event of the F1 sim racing from DreamHack. They'll be racing this fantastic circuit as well as China and Bahrain, so make sure you tune in to the F1 sim racing as well. So much to happen this weekend, so much for you guys to be enjoying at home. And another thing for you to look forward to, you can see a little clip of it on your screen now. This is a track guide with Esteban Ocon and Ollie Bearman that will be featuring in the pre-race show. And I've been told that it's going to be pretty fun, this one, which isn't really that surprising given it's those two, is it?
Didn't I see that Toyota for sale outside the front gate a few minutes ago? It said no handbrake, but everything else works.
Yes, I think it's quite an exciting end to that one.
I think this is going to put Jolyon Palmer and James Hinchcliffe out of a job, right? Because we need to get F1 drivers doing our track guides every week.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch it. I really, really can't. But let's actually talk a little bit about Ollie Bearman's performance just quickly. I mean, I don't know how good his performance is going to be in that track guide, but he's put in a blinding performance so far this season, hasn't he?
5th position in the championship, Ollie Bearman at the moment. When you watch through China, you know, he's holding pace with Max Verstappen through the middle of the race in China on the hard tyre, and it's a decent car underneath him as well, doing a great job. Esteban Ocon sits just behind him and just outside the points, but it's a heartening beginning to the season for Haas, but some outstanding performances for Bearman, who hasn't been outside the points in any racing session so far.
And I think it's quite easy to forget this is only his second full season in Formula 1. The fact he's adapted to these new 2026 cars so quickly as well, I think speaks volumes of the comfort level he's got in his own ability, but the way that he's working in such harmony with that team at Haas. You talk to the boys and girls there and they love working with him.
He is pretty talented, that driver, he is indeed. Now, before we wrap things up, you know what I'm going to ask you? Predictions. You got to do it, come on.
Prediction would be, are we qualifying first?
Yeah, go on then, if you want to be generous.
First. I'm going to put Kimi Antonelli on pole position.
Nice.
Why not back-to-back your first pole position in Formula 1? And then I will have George Russell for my race victor. I think we'll see Lewis Hamilton once more on the podium, but Kimi Antonelli will be second to George.
So I'm going to flip it, I think. I think George is going to be back to his best. I think he's going to get pole, but I think Kimi's going to find a way to win it on Sunday. And I think we might get that first opportunity to see them go wheel to wheel a little bit.
But still Mercedes on top.
Yeah.
Still Mercedes.
Still Mercedes on top. Well, we will see how it all unfolds. And as we've just seen, we have you covered all through the weekend. So make sure you join us from Free Practice 1 tomorrow. We'll be bringing you all of the action from here at the Suzuka circuit. The drivers love it, the fans love it, and we love it too. We will see you tomorrow.